websites to you. And there's a definite feeling that all is not as it should be in that world, and there are still people who get away with all sorts of misbehaviour and all sorts of dubious backlinks, etc., which make you always feel like you need to cheat to win. And Google are very aware of that. It's still possible to do that, to have a company, for example, that has absolutely no representation in a town and yet pretend to have an office there or something like that. There's all this stuff going on. But for those of us that are trying to play with a straight back net, would rather have our destiny in our own hands and not have to go out and try and actually ask people for backlinks. Something's happened to Google over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, which is really, really interesting. And that is the emergence of a whole new way of doing search engine, which is absolutely in our power and which we can all do something about, particularly those of us who like to write and put stuff on the internet. And that's the emergence of these little things at the top of Google, which you'll see now. So I've done a search for commercial insurance here, and you'll see at the top there that you'll start seeing them all the time now, and I'm sure you're aware of it. People also ask. So this is on the home page of an incredibly important search term, commercial insurance, which would take absolutely years. If you look at the competition at the top of the thing, here we are, moneysupermarket.com, who've got an SEO budget of the hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, and AXA, who will be paying an advertising agency equally huge sums of money to be in that position. And yet here are these questions at the top of Google, which are actually much easier to get there than it seems. So I'll tell you how to do it, and I'll also show you a fantastic tool to go about doing it, because those positions are very valuable indeed. And I want to introduce you to the concept of A, questions and answers, and B, the concept of long tail keywords and why they're very useful to you in all of your work. So we'll just go on now. Just have a look at the actual keyword commercial insurance. So there are 1.9 thousand searches for this term every year, which is pretty consistent look across the year. But it's damn hard. There we are. It's actually less hard than I thought it was going to be, but it's defined as a hard keyword basically. And to try and get to that, to try for a local insurance company, and this applies to all of you in terms of these core, what are called base keywords. Trying to rank for that nowadays requires huge amounts of effort or really substantial amounts of money. And yet, when you look at that keyword, which as I say is a base keyword, we got almost 2,000 visitors a month. It's very, very high competition, but also the actual intent. If you're aware of the idea of a buying cycle, where first of all we go and we feel we have a need, and we go and research it, and then it becomes more of a want, and we start to go and get deeper into the subject, and then we get very specific, and then we start looking for a supplier. As we go further and further along towards, okay, we've now identified a supplier, and now we know what we want, etc., etc. The actual keyword commercial insurance is actually quite early in that cycle, and therefore not actually a hugely useful keyword. If you look at another one which was on that list, I think, or it's slightly further down that list, when you click on the little arrow, then you get more and more questions, as you may have seen. And you look at another one, which is how much commercial insurance do I need? That's really quite interesting. And that's a long tail keyword. So it's not a base, really important, deep keyword, first choice, the first thing you think about. It's a much more long tail one. It only gets 100 visits per month. But there's very, very little competition. It's actually relatively easy to get high in Google with a phrase like that. And it has a higher, it's not a fantastically commercial term, but it is a higher, how much would insurance cost on my tractor? Now that's a commercial, that's got massive commercial intent, because I need insurance on my tractor, or I need insurance on my this, that. But it has a higher commercial intent than the word commercial insurance. Now, the thing about the 100 visitors per month is that 10 of those makes the same amount of visitors, 20 of those little keywords the same amount of visitors as commercial insurance, even without trying to put it on the first page. That's what it's getting at the moment, 100 visitors a month. So if you're writing articles, all of which are bringing in 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, after a while it starts to build up. Okay, so how do you go about finding those questions? And the first thing is, there's this wonderful website now called answerthepublic.com. I'll make these slides available afterwards. And what Answer the Public does is you put a base keyword in. So in this case, I put in commercial insurance, and it tells you the questions that people are asking on the internet. Is commercial insurance the same as business insurance? What's the best commercial insurance company? Is commercial insurance not expensive? It's not great, but it gives you a good start. And if you look at those little dots, the deeper the green, the more people are asking the question. So if you're looking about what to write, then that's a damn good place to start. But I've got a better thing for you later on. But this is the way to go about thinking. What are those questions that people are asking on the internet? And here they are. And it goes deeper and deeper. This is the free version, but it's $10 a month to go really deep. Now, there are two reasons that Google are putting these questions at the top of the search results. Long tail keywords were always a good idea because 10 times 100 equals 1,000. They've always been a great idea, but they've become more and more important since Google have started putting those snippets at the top of Google, those questions at the top of Google. And the reason they've put them there is they want people to stay on Google now. They don't want people going off and finding answers to their questions. They want them to be able to find the answer there, because the more they stay on Google, the more chance that they'll actually click on an advert. So there's a commercial driver for that, and it's something we should take advantage of, particularly those of you who've got some level of authority, all of us really, I mean, just age, I suppose, we've got some level of authority in our industries, because the more we're trusted, and that applies to people who publish a lot, people who've got qualifications, people who've got industry awards, etc., etc. They're more trusted by Google now. They're starting to pick that up. So we've got a good chance of getting there for really quite impressive and quite important terms, and we can compete with large companies. The other reason it's not vitally important, the other reason it's a very, very good idea to start looking at the concept of using questions to drive what you put onto the internet, and I'll show you how to do it in a moment, is because of voice search. Now, I don't know how many of you users starting to use it, but I certainly use it quite a bit, and it's not very good. But it's getting better, and it's getting better, and it's getting better. I now understand artificial intelligence. It's really very interesting and actually quite simple conceptually. They keep saying it's going to come along, but the truth is we're eventually going to say, Alexa, can you do this? Google, can you do this? Etc. And we're going to use it more and more and more. And the thing is that the whole concept of voice search are around questions. So questions are a vital part of voice search, which will become a huge part of how we gather information. You know, we won't be typing stuff into a computer or typing stuff into a phone in 10 years' time. We'll be asking the wall or the fridge or whatever it is to give us an answer to the question we want answered. So that's the other reason it's worthwhile. Okay, so the easiest way to take advantage of this is to start thinking about putting a frequently asked questions section on your website. It's always been a good idea, and it's always been a good idea to write down the questions that customers ask you. And after a while, it saves a load of time, but in my case, it's tremendously important, and I keep trying to do it, and I've started to do it now, because we get asked the same questions again and again and again. So there's a real practical reason why you should do it. As it happens, Google absolutely loves these because they're very simply formatted pages, and they have exactly what we wanted. And if you click on those, there's a poll, it drops down, there's a little thing. And so you've got a perfect way of feeding those questions into Google. However, the ultimate way, obviously, is to start to blog. Now, a blog post is a perfectly formatted, in terms of technically formatted, i.e. it's got a headline, it's very often got a subhead, it's nicely split up into nice little sections, It's all about one subject. So it's a very, very clear, very, very well optimized web page in its own right. Every blog post is a web page of its own. It has a URL, it has an address in one form or other. And it makes incredible sense to try and to publish a blog post. Now, the easiest thing to write about is to answer questions, because they're things we already know the answers to. If you sit there thinking, I'm going to write a blog post about something, and you try and come up with it, but if you find a question, either through the research that I've suggested, and I'll show you a really fantastic tool as the last couple of slides, or you've collected these answers. We know the answer to these questions professionally because they're the things we deal with all the time. And they're also the things that people are asking for. It makes sense to answer the questions that more people are asking for. However, it's a very, very easy way of doing it. And in order to encourage people to do it, I mean, Frank's now a prodigious producer of material, which has been great. So is John starting to be as well. What I say is, imagine what it would be like if you could just try and manage to write 1 or 2 articles a month, 1 or 2 articles a month. If you managed 2 articles a month and you got to a year, imagine what it would be like if you had 24 articles on your website, all of which answered questions, all of which showed your ability, all of which provided value, but also all of which is liable to get 50, 100, maybe 200 people a month looking at them, which makes a substantial amount of traffic for a website. It's still a big deal. It's still hard to do, to write blog posts. It's a fantastic thing, and this comes with a word of warning now. There's a fantastic tool. I don't know here comes the word of warning first of all. Appsumo.com. Does anybody know here? Can you put your hands up and tell me who knows Appsumo.com is? I think I told you about it. Do you know Geoffrey anyway? Right, be extremely careful. I am about 1,200 quid into it, to Appsumo.com now, because it's massively addictive. What happens is when people launch software, in order to get some, which is going to be so much per month, 50 quid a month or 100 quid a month or £12 a month, what they do is they do a deal with AppSumo and they give away a lifetime version of the thing. So you never have to pay a subscription again. So you buy the thing for a lifetime thing. I think, and the thing I'm talking about, I think is $69. So it's about 50 something quid.
Yeah, I bought it as Amelia.
Okay. So so all I'm saying is be careful, because I bought not hundreds of these things, but I bought loads of them. And afterwards, I'll get that because that'll be useful later on. And I use, of the 15 or 20 programs I bought, I've probably used 20. However, this particular one, which is called Phrase, if I've given you anything to think about in this talk, which is now drawing to an end, is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's $69. It lets you create 30 articles a month, which is much more than any of us need. And what it does is it searches for the questions that people, you give it a base keyword in the same way as you do with what's it called, Answer the Public. You give it a base keyword, it then comes up with the questions that people are asking across the internet. You choose the one you want to go for, and then what it does, as you see on the right hand side, left hand side of the screen there, it then brings in all of the references that it's used to find this research. So all you have to do basically is you can just put them directly into the article, rewrite them a little bit in one form or other, stick it through a kid's plagiarism software, which is on the internet as well, to make sure it's not all duplicate. But basically, it's the easiest way I've come across, completely legitimately, of researching and creating an article about a subject. And I absolutely recommend it. I've had it for a month now and I've been using it all the time. So it's $69, but just beware of AppSumo and please don't blame me if you become a Okay, so that's it. Questions are the answer to going forward on doing something extremely valuable for our customers anyway, and also increasing our search results and the traffic that comes to our website. These people who are answering questions, what are good providers for commercial general insurance, liability insurance for a startup? I mean, that's hugely loaded with commercial intent, because there's a guy in a startup who wants to know, what's the story about it. They're ready to buy now. And those questions will exist for your business. It's terribly difficult to pluck them out of the air, but given the tools I've shown you, it makes it a lot easier. So I hope that's useful. I'll just go, oh, went the wrong way. I'll just go to Q&A now, and I'll stop the share.
Very interesting, Felix, and thank you very much for condensing a tremendous amount of information into a small 10 minutes, quarter of an hour.